That way, just in case somebody has an emergency and can't make it, they'll be able to see it later. I am very happy to have today a friend of mine and one of my colleagues at Ball State, Dr. Randy Zimmerly. And Dr. Zimmerly is the Ball State representative to an institution that has been part of this state for over 60 years now, and that is the Superintendent Search Team. Some of you may not even have known that this existed, but the Superintendent Search Team has a representative from the four state schools, from Indiana State, IU, Ball State, and Purdue. And Dr. Zimmerly is our representative. And one of the great opportunities that we have for him to meet you is so that he gets to know a little bit about you as you're working through the program and finishing up all the. Hi, Erica. Glad to see you join us. And so that you are getting to be known by Dr. Zimmerly. How many of you had him by any chance for your principalship internship or your superintendent internship? Okay, a couple of you. Well, actually, that was just one. I think it was just Eric. I raised my hand.
Oh, oh no, I was just waving, saying hi, everyone.
And Erica, I don't know if you know too many people in this group yet.
I
So
don't.
here's
Hi, guys.
what we're gonna do first, because I sent to Dr. Zimmerly a copy of the class list, and on that list, a location, a place where you work and what you're doing, because that way, as he wants to, he can write some notes, and while we're going through this tonight, and then he might be thinking, yes, this person, I've got to talk to this person. So I've got, you know, uh, Dr. Zimmerly, I will tell you that they are at the position right now that this is for most of them their second semester in the EDS program. So they
Okay.
still have this semester, the summer, and next fall, and most of them by that point will finish the EDS. So um, then they can apply for, as soon as they finish that, they can apply for superintendent's license. So basically, about a year from right now, they'll be looking for superintendent positions. So
Very
let,
good.
let's start with Carla. And so what we're going to have you do, by the way, you guys did such a terrific job with that introduction activity. That was fun for me. I was hoping you would like that. I found that in a book called Professional Troublemaker by Lovey Jones. And I thought, what a terrific way to introduce yourself. It's kind of like the Game of Thrones kind of thing, where your name goes on and on and on and on forever. So, Dr. Zimmerly, we had them do what's called an oriki, and I had never even heard of that before.
I don't know what that is.
Yeah, it's where you describe yourself by who you are, and so if any of you want to use that as your introduction tonight, you're welcome to read that. But otherwise, we'll just have you tell us your name, what your current position is, and that would be position and school district, and maybe what you plan to do with the superintendent's license. So, Carla, we'll start you off.
Okay, my name is Carla Laberman, and I'm at Westfield Washington Schools. At Westfield High School as a special education teacher, and I said for my wiki that I'm a believer in all that's possible, and I said I'm the toughest critic on myself, and yeah, that's a little bit about me.
And I promised her that I was going to have a conversation with her about that
Yes,
because
I read that.
being your own toughest critic can be very difficult sometimes. And so we will, Carla, I promise we will talk about that.
Sounds good.
Okay, Tyrone, who's driving right
So,
now?
I'm originally from Atlanta, Georgia. Uh, I'm I actually got the nod for to be our school leader for KIP Legacy High School with KIP in the public schools, just literally like 3 days ago.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's real cool. That's a little bit about me. I have it avid sports football person. What I look to do with the EDS is I have a passion for um, just developing teachers and developing them in a way that can implement best instructional practices as well as affect how instruction is implemented and delivered to all students. Of course, being equitable and creating that high achieving, high expectation, and rigorous expectations and curriculum that's going to open the not open but expand their trajectory and actually expose them to more BA and A type of education. So really looking forward to lean into the teaching and learning portion because I think that investing in our teachers and in the human capital that we have is going to be the best indicator for us to move the needle forward for our students academically.
Okay, good. And Kent.
Hello, Kent Kaufman. I am currently a teacher at Elkhart Community High or Elkhart Community, the high school. Um, as far as what I want to do as a superintendent, that's so far down the road for me right now. It's kind of hard to picture that.
And Kent and I just discussed we're going to start talking about some of those ideas. And
Yep, I'm looking forward to it.
let me throw this out there to any of you who are not currently in an administrative position. That is one of the conversations I would like to have with you personally this semester. Because if you want to be a superintendent, you eventually have to start being an administrator, at least in most places. So, if you are one of those people, then if I have not reached out to you, then reach out to me and we'll set it up at a time that works for you and we'll just talk. No pressure whatsoever, because it is not my place to pressure anybody. That's a great part about this kind of job. So it's just to talk about what could happen and to kind of guide from there. So Rachel Stoner up next, which Rachel, honestly, best name in the whole class. You know,
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah,
I
it's
can't believe I never said that last semester, but you know,
iconic. Yeah. Hey everyone, great to see many of you and see new faces. I'm Rachel Stoner. I'm in my second year as an administrator, assistant principal at Charter School of the Dunes in Gary, Indiana. I taught agriculture, high school agriculture before this at Morgan Township, south of Valparaiso. I still have a lot of steps before becoming a superintendent. I'm in just an AP right now, so I still have a principal position to learn from, and at least that. So I am just here on this learning journey, but excited to just learn along each of you and become the best leader that I can possibly be right now, but then also for down the road when I do become a superintendent someday. So excited to see you. Thank you.
outstanding. Shade.
Hello, my name is Sade Watson. I currently am an assistant principal at Carmel High School. I've been started my admin career as an AP. I've been a principal, and now um, went to Carmel to be an AP because it is totally different than anything that I have ever done. Because I am a charter
Yes,
school girl through and through. I graduated from a charter school. I taught and was an admin at charter schools all the way up until I got to Carmel. And so this is a learning experience for me, but it has been a great shift. I honestly don't know what I'm going to do with the degree. I feel like I still have a lot of years in education to figure that out. But I'm a continual learner, so that's one of the reasons why I got in the program, and B, just wanted to get everything established before my life kind of elevates in a different manner.
outstanding. One of the things that I've noticed, and those of you who are in the Indy area already, there's a lot more movement between charter and traditional public in Indianapolis than anywhere else that I've seen in the state. And so that's kind of it is really an opportunity for those of you who are at either side to make the decision. I have a friend who's bounced back and forth between traditional public to parochial and charter, and so it's an interesting thing. Um, Teresa, up next.
Hello, I am Teresa Lee. I work for Indianapolis Public Schools. I am a central office administrator. My title is Equitable Supports Coordinator. I have the honor of overseeing attendance and discipline, everything culture, climate, professional development for all 7 of our middle schools. And then I have a team of 8 behavior specialists, coaches, and a social worker that support the work I do. And so my Orky was protector of culture, defender of dignity, and guardian of equity. So I'm just happy each day my title hasn't been forced to change.
This is true. In many places, including Ball State, titles have changed. So that's very true. Tony.
I am Tony Corradolo. I serve as an assistant principal and athletic director at Hobart Middle School, right tucked up in Northwest Indiana corner of the state. I have been in administration. This is my 5th year. I taught in the classroom for 7 years, and then I transitioned. I was a dean for 2 school years. Had one foot out the door and a standing offer from Kaler Middle School in Dyer to go be their assistant principal, and was offered a promotion to stay in Hobart. So my whole career has been here at Hobart, and more specifically for what otherwise is 11 of my 12 years here at Hobart Middle School. Spent about a half year at the high school level teaching social studies, and taught all sorts of stuff here at the middle school. And it's been a wonderful ride. I have entered and exited the EDS/EDD program. This is my 3rd time attempting to go through.
And we're not letting you out this time.
No. I have no desire to get out of it. I want to stay in. Every time I had started, it just so happened, my wife got pregnant and we were having more children. And so, and then it was all.
I'm pretty sure there's not a direct connection there, but
well, she's currently pregnant with our 4th, so maybe there is a direct.
But there may be
correlation, right? But yeah, each time it has also been like at a critical time where I've taken that leap into my next level of administration, learned the job. But now I kind of feel like maybe I'm a little too comfortable. This is my 3rd year as the assistant principal and athletic director. I'm trying to be that continual learner, feel ready to have my own building, but know that comes with more significant time commitment. It comes with more significant responsibility. Your name's tagged to everything, but ultimately, I do want to be a school superintendent, and my goal would be to reach that status here within 10, maybe 12 years. Want to be a building level leader, maybe get into a central office employee spot, and then elevate to that super job. That has always been my ultimate goal in education, is to lead a district and to navigate that instructional piece of it, and the have a clear vision, have a clear direction for a corporation, be that people-centered leader. And so I hope to be there here in the next chapter as soon as I'm finished up.
Okay, Brent.
Hi, everybody. My name is Brent Adams. I'm currently the principal at Cowan Junior Senior High School in Muncie. This is year 18. Before this, I was a math teacher. I know in my Oriki, I said one of the things that I love is being the motivator of the lost.
I love
so
that.
One thing,
very good.
One thing that I am, I obviously love the relationships with students. Don't really deal with discipline all the time, but talking to those students who struggle with the superintendent's license, I do eventually want to move into a central office position, and I'm just not in a rush to do so. Being in my fourth year as principal, I'm still learning. But yeah, I am very excited to be learning alongside all of you and look forward to everything about the class.
Outstanding. Eric.
Good evening. I'm Eric Grimm, and I am very similar to Teresa. I'm in a central office role. I'm currently serving as assistant superintendent in my second year here for Muncie Community Schools. Worked in Muncie Community Schools for my entire 28-year career. The last 4 years have been in central office. Want to say hi to Dr. Zimmerly there. He was my professor there in the fall internship, and I'm hoping his spring semester is less hectic than his fall semester. I know he had a change of plans there in the
Yeah,
fall.
this interim job is wrapping up the first week of February. Dr. Jamie Carroll is going to take over starting February 2nd. So,
And what
yeah,
district is that?
I'm sorry,
What district is that?
Westview.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So look forward to learning in this class. We have a very unique partnership here in Muncie with Ball State University, as Ball State University is our governing body. They appoint our school board, which is the only college university in the nation that kind of has that influence over a public high school. So look forward to this and continuing my road to getting my superintendent's license.
And we will talk very briefly about some of the bills that are before the legislature right now. But one of the things that's being pushed at this moment is more of a similar kind of thing to what Muncie has right now, and that is to have appointed school boards or a mix of appointed school boards. That's one of those things. I'm not sure how everybody feels about this. This is my perspective only, and I'm not speaking on behalf of Ball State, but I think having an elected school board is what keeps the public in public schools. And I think it's one of those things that, as annoying as school board members can be, and some of them can, well, that's the second half of this semester. We talk all about dealing with school boards. So you'll get to learn all the things that they can do and the things they should never do, but still do. And that's a fascinating part of our time that we will spend together. But that is coming up on several districts. They're talking about that legislatively. So we'll see where that goes. Trey Heater.
Good afternoon, everyone. Trey Heater. I am currently assistant principal at Southeastern Elementary School in Hamilton Southeastern Schools. This is year 2 for me in this role. Before this, I spent time at Heritage Christian School as a principal and assistant principal there before doing a year in IPS as an assistant principal there as well. So I've kind of bounced around from the public and the private space. It's all about the impact and the kids for me. I've always had great role models and leaders throughout my education career. So that's what got me into education. And that's why I want to continue to go the doctoral route as well, so that I can continue to be able to make the same impact that people have had on my life. It's always great learning from the different classmates that we have in this program, and obviously you, Dr. Schaefer, too. So just continuing on that journey. I know at some point I'll take the next step in the principal role, but not being too picky right now either, and just trying to learn as much as I can in the AP role and from people at the central office before taking that next step. So I know the superintendent role will be, down the line, like a lot of people have said, but just want to make sure that I'm learning as much as possible and just staying as up to date on all the new topics and ideas in public education. So
Outstanding.
happy to be here.
Good. Thank you. John.
Hey, my name is John Moore. I'm in my 6th year at Westfield High School. I'm our business department lead as well as an entrepreneurship teacher at the school. Before teaching, I spent 16 years in the corporate world, running a couple of businesses, owning a couple of businesses. My passion and the reason I'm doing this is, I'm really big into career technical education. CT is my passion. It's what I want to do. And as districts grow and as the diploma pathways have kind of changed, it's more of a need in all of our schools.
Okay, good. Thanks, John. And Jenny Yarger.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jenny Yarger. I am an elementary principal in Huntington, Indiana. And this is my 5th year doing that, and always knew I wanted to be a principal. I think I have the best job in the world. And kind of like when I started my admin license, I graduated with that from Ball State amidst COVID, and a job in my district opened up for an assistant principal and applied for it and got it. Decided last year, about a year ago, to hop in and get my EDS, not sure exactly what was going for. And since that time, my assistant soup elementary director, who was my principal growing up, and my superintendent are both leaving. So
Oh,
it's opened
wow.
up some job opportunities. I'm processing if I'm ready to apply for those things. I love my job, but excited. I, like many of you said, always love learning new things, and excited to learn from all of you. I kind of an interesting thing. I've worked, I think this is my 20th year in education, and I've worked at 7 elementaries and gone through 2 building closures. So I've not often had the chance when I'm ready to move, like a building I worked in closed. They shut it down. And so we were moved as a staff to a different location and resettled. And so making this decision for myself has been hard, and been meeting with a lot of mentors to help kind of guide me on the way and know what to expect. So happy to be here and learn along with all of you.
Outstanding. Erica.
Hi, you guys. My name is Erica Boston. This is Yogi. You say hi, Yogi? I could teach my dog to talk and sing. I'm a 20th year educator, and I worked in Omaha, Iowa, and South Carolina. Um, I really enjoy. Okay, you say hi. Okay.
Yeah, now Yogi's talking. Yogi said, and I have
Yeah,
been her
he
assistant
really talks and
everywhere.
sings, and he could tell
Yeah.
when I'm happy. He can tell. And I love students, and I really love teachers. And I'm just looking forward to utilizing this education to grow in that area.
So,
Um,
Erica, where are you right now?
I am in South Carolina right now. I'm in Columbia, South Carolina.
I'm going to tell you right now, out of all of you here, I am most jealous of that. My daughter lives in Charleston.
Okay, I'm
Well,
from
she actually lives
Charleston.
in Somerville, so she's
Okay, I used to
a
teach out
little
there.
close. Yeah. And
I love it. We have to talk more.
oh my goodness.
Um, my
Charleston,
son, go
wow.
ahead.
Charleston has the best restaurants
Yes,
out of anywhere I've ever been. And that was on purpose. That was kind of
yes,
it was a planning thing that they actually did. So we'll
thank
talk some more
you.
about that. So,
Yeah, it's all good. My son actually plays high school football. Jordan, come here and say hi. And he got a he's been talking to a coach at Ball State.
oh wow.
And then he got an offer last night at the Citadel, which is in Charleston. So
Oh my goodness.
maybe he'll pop in here and say hi, along with
Well,
Yogi.
then I will also tell you I have applied for and been in contention for 4 different positions at the Citadel.
Okay.
Um, I finally gave up and said, I think I'm just destined to stay in Indiana, but I absolutely love the Citadel.
Yeah,
It's
well, we will
Military
be
College
there
of
because,
South Carolina.
yeah,
Beautiful, absolutely beautiful campus. Wow.
we'll be going down there on Friday to follow up on an official visit. So I have to keep you guys posted on what he decides.
Oh
But
man,
I'm
he
happy
could
to
end
be
up
here
being
and see
A
you all.
Citadel Bulldog down there. So
Yeah.
okay,
See you. Thank you. Say bye.
Sharonda.
Okay,
There we go.
you would think by now it'd be a little bit faster, but it's hard to do it on a phone. Um, good afternoon or evening, everyone. My name is Sharonda Woods. I serve as the assistant principal, one of the assistant principals at George Washington High School for Indianapolis Public Schools. Um, well, this is probably like it's over 20 years in education. So I've served in multiple capacities, starting out as a mathematics educator and then have went up as a coach and then into administration as serving as a dean assistant principal prior to this year being back here. And then also as the Career Academy Coordinator at Arsenal Technical High School. So long story short, that just means I oversaw the pathways, the CTE programs there. So if that helps to kind of put the context with that. I'm still trying to figure out what exactly the plan is for me in this role of leadership. What I do know is that I want to continue to pour into other leaders and support them and help them to develop just like someone did it for me, pay it forward. And then just, mastering the things that this opportunity has given me. I think one of the things I put is that I'm a coordinator of chaos. I think any of us in administration, we know like every day is something new and something different.
That's the best part of the job.
Yes. And so there's always something that you're trying to problem solve or trying to figure out how to best move to put a forward motion and the goals and the vision that has been set forth. So it keeps me busy, but I actually wouldn't choose anything else. I enjoy it. And so that's all.
Okay. Michelle.
Hi, I'm Michelle Zentz, and I'm currently a principal at Riverside Intermediate in Plymouth, Indiana. So I'm a 5-6 building. I have been in administration. This is my 6th year. I started as a dean of students and then moved to assistant principal and now principal, 2nd year as principal. Before that, I taught in elementary, 4th grade, and then I went to 6th grade. And prior to that, I was in banking and insurance and mortgages. So big shift to education. I had a large life event happen. I lost my first spouse and decided I've always wanted to be a teacher. So I went back to school at an incredibly difficult time, realized how much I loved it. Went into education, but I don't know where my path leads. I've kind of got this belief that you do your best, you see the people in your building, you pour into other people, and doors open and you walk through them if you choose to. So I
Sure.
don't know what the future holds. I'm not done yet. So that's why I'm in this course. I feel
Absolutely.
like there's more to me. So I'm here for that. But I don't know what my path will be. I might be in my building until the day I retire, um, or a door may open and I might try a new adventure.
Absolutely. And I used to think that by the time I got to this advanced stage that I'm at right now, which I just turned 67 last week, that I would be fully retired and enjoying all that. And it's not anywhere close. So, like you, I think I still have more to give, and I am not giving up and looking forward to that. And so I can sympathize and I understand that. Allie, we're up to you.
Perfect timing. I'm parked to pick up my kid. Um, I am Allie Ennis. I am the principal at Tindley Genesis Academy in Indianapolis. We are the oldest charter school in the state of Indiana, the oldest charter network. I'm sorry. This is, I think, I was trying to count it up just a few minutes ago. I think this is year 16 in administration for me. All my degrees so far have come from Ball State. I have a child who just graduated from Ball State last year, and I have two who are there right now. So we are a Ball State family for sure. As far as and I've worked in both traditional public and charter. Um, and my experiences have been amazing at both. And there have been trials at both of those
Sure.
areas. And I'm very passionate about, the opportunities that charters can give within communities. And so I think when I look at where my path might lead me, because I was a high school teacher, I worked in high schools. I was a high school administrator before I came to Tindley. And I've been in an elementary school now. This is my 7th year, which is interesting. I never would have thought as a training to be a high school teacher and thinking I was going to be a high school administrator forever, that I would land myself in an elementary, but I love it. I think, though, the thing that I'm most passionate about is the first thing is helping helping new teachers navigate what they learned as pre-service teachers and the reality of what education is. Like, I think that there has to be some intentionality around the coaching. that has to be involved to make sure that we don't have people flooding out of our profession, because what we do is really
Absolutely.
important. And
That's right.
so I spend a lot of time working with my team, making sure that we are bridging that gap for them. And then I really love creating systems and routines. And I'm the queen of a good spreadsheet. And I believe that what gets tracked gets done. And so I love looking at data and creating systems. And so I think that will probably land me in a district office, but I don't think I ever want to be a superintendent. I think I see myself more as an assistant superintendent or someone overseeing culture. So culture or
Very,
academics.
very
So
interesting. And Dr. Zimmerly, if I don't remember to ask you that question, I would really love to talk because I've never been a superintendent. I've been an assistant in a large district, but there's a world of difference between being superintendent and being assistant superintendent. I loved being an assistant superintendent. I was in charge of curriculum, instruction, and assessment, or as I always like to say, the CIA. That because I had a military intelligence background, so I had to throw that in there anyway. Um, we will talk about that. And Victor Powell, last but not least.
Good afternoon, good people. Definitely humbled to be in the space. Victor Powell, supervisor of Title I and Title IV. I live in the DC metro area. Prince William is the second largest division in the state of Virginia. We're the 11th most diverse division in the nation. I support 38 schools that receive Title I funding in our division, 28 elementary schools, 7 middle schools, and 3 high schools. Supporting those principals within their CIPs, their budgets. Our Title I budget is a little bit under 18 million for our division. We have a little bit over 90,000 students in our entire division. As far as experiences I've had before, middle school principal of the largest middle school in the state of Virginia at about 1,900 kids, IB, Spanish immersion, all of the things, Title I as well. Elementary principal, elementary assistant principal, high school assistant principal, high school dean, adjunct professor. Got my master's from Ball State in educational leadership. Been a 4th grade teacher all the way through 8th grade. Been an administrator at every level. A number of years ago, went through Howard University in partnership with ASA through their urban superintendency program, through their academy, which was really good and helpful. As far as for me, I try to stay grounded in my why. I was that kid that, again, I didn't read and comprehend my first book until I was in college, and I was 19 as a senior in high school. So for me, school was not a happy place. So for me, my why is staying grounded and making sure that kids have access and opportunity, make sure families have access and opportunity, and making sure we build really good teams, really good systems, grounded in equity for the entire community. So for me, not really sure what God has for me down the road, but for me, it's surrounding myself and keeping myself around people who are smarter than me so I can learn from them and using that discernment to find out what will come next. But I'm not a ladder climber. Be obedient where I'm at right now, and then as the things open up, I'll use my discernment and prayer to find out what happens next. We'll see.
Outstanding. Now, Dr. Zimmerly, I'm going to let you introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. Randy Zimmerly. I have a background in elementary, but got into administration when I was in my late 20s and then took over my first school district in my early 30s, and I stayed there for 20 years. Started my Indiana pension in 2018, but obviously didn't retire. But had a lot of second adulthood experiences since leaving the superintendency. My superintendency was at Westview School Corporation, which is where I am right now as an interim filling in because they lost their superintendent. But I've been helping with the internship on the principal side, going back, I think this is my 8th or 9th year being a part of the department at Ball State. During that time, also ran the Educational Services Center at Mishawaka. It was Region 7. Got to know the folks up in Region 6, so spent a lot of time with Peggy up there in Hobart and know quite a few people up there in the region through that experience. Um, Also did a national sales job, had a real nice opportunity to join a school safety company that was basically financed through private equity, was buying up small school safety companies, Alice Active Shooter Training, some of you are familiar with that. And so was a part of Navigate 360 while it was still Navigate Prepared, was part of that marketing push, but that happened right before COVID. So did some national sales and then delivered RVs using a 1-ton pickup. Did that for a couple years until I got sucked back into schools and doing interim. So done a number of interim superintendents filling in for school boards when they needed some extra help. And all that while continuing to participate at Ball State as an adjunct, supervising interns. And as Dr. Schaefer said, just starting this last year, started to help out with the university search team. So my experiences there are not extensive, but certainly ramping that up. And this opportunity to get to know all of you is really helpful. It's good to know and be able to advocate for our Ball State students. So appreciate being a part of this, and I'm an open book. So I look forward to being able to share some experiences and get to know all of you a little bit better. Appreciate being here, Dr. Schaefer.
Very glad to have you. And I will say that I had a very busy year spent on the superintendent search team. Um, and because I was the only one on the superintendent search team who had never been a superintendent, I was always a junior member of the team. Wasn't officially supposed to be that way, but that's the way it was at that point in time. I think some of the personnel have changed, but it was a very busy thing. And I'm sure Randy would agree to this, being in the northern part of Indiana, um, when you have openings in this very southern part of Indiana, it is a very long day. And I would find myself sometimes doing a 5-hour drive down to southern Indiana, spend 4 or 5 hours with the school board and another 5 hours driving back. And I said, after a year of that, I said, I can't do this. My wife was thinking that she must have lost her husband somewhere, and she couldn't figure out where I was. I was on the road and went back and forth. So I gave it up, and Dr. Quick picked it up and did that for a while, and then passed the baton to Dr. Cooper briefly, and then to Dr. Zimmerly. So tonight we're going to talk about, and all of you guys, almost all of you, have submitted to me questions about the superintendent search. So what we kind of want to hit the big pieces of, how do you get that first superintendent's job? And that's one of the interesting questions that I wish somebody, when I took this course back in the early 2000s, had had that conversation with us, had said, let's talk about that first job. But nobody did, because I've always been this guy that, I'm not a baseball player, but this is the best way to put it that I can think of. I was always trying to hit the home run, you know. I had in my mind what I wanted to do. I wanted to be the superintendent of a large urban school district. That was my heart. That's what I wanted to do. It's what my passion was. And so there were opportunities along the way to take smaller districts, and I didn't even apply because I wanted that big one, you know. Not for the money, because my wife would tell you I don't think about money nearly enough. Um, but one of the things, Dr. Zimmerly, if you could talk a little bit about that first job, how do they set themselves up to walk into that first job, whether it's an assistant superintendent with the idea of moving up or as a superintendent? How do they how do they decide?
Yeah, I mean it's an interesting question, and I think the answer would be it totally kind of depends on your pathway and who you are.
Mhm.
I think the best way though to have an opportunity to move into a position, especially if it's a position up, is to do a great job where you're at. Um, I think people who show themselves to be very ambitious and be what I would call a hustler, somebody who has a can do attitude and doesn't live their life explaining why things weren't possible or why the challenges were too hard to overcome. Those people who have that positive mindset and are just knocking out of the park, doing what they're currently doing with a lot of enthusiasm, I think have the best chance to actually advance and move up. I do think Mike is right. It is very difficult to have an opportunity to get that first job if you think that first job is going to be a suburban superintendency outside of Fort Wayne or outside of Indianapolis or perhaps the some of the larger districts, the Munsters of the world, those types of jobs. Those boards typically are capable of doing a national search. They possibly would draw people in from a lot of different places. So I do think the idea is the job that is the best first job is the job that you're able to get. And, if you
I
are,
am so glad you said that, Randy. That's it. Uh,
yeah,
and I think one of the difficult things is being able to say, you know what, I've had a great experience in administration up to this point. Just like Randy said, pour your heart, your soul, do everything you can do to set yourself apart. It's not like you're, like checking off check marks here, but you want to be known as somebody who gets the job done. And then when you start looking at those jobs, you're going to start thinking about where am I going to fit? Where is a good location for me? What kind of area works well for me? Because let's face it, uh, the school district that Randy was superintendent of for many years, I could never have gotten the superintendent's job there. Anybody want to guess why? Randy could probably tell you in a heartbeat. I am not a very conservative person as far as, well, as far as a lot of things, I guess. Um, I'm not very conservative politically. I am not very conservative in any kind of religious sense. I really don't have much of a. Um, I used to be very involved in religion. I'm not at any point any longer. And in a community that's built on very conservative values, they would have found me pretty offensive. Now, I don't normally swear in front of people, you know. I try not to. If you work in public education, you swear sometimes, sometimes more than you want to. But you also have to know. See, I was a better fit for the school city of East Chicago than I was a fit for Westview. I actually interviewed there 3 times and turned down very dumb move on my part. Turned down an assistant superintendent position there because they were under a $6 million deficit at that time, which is against the law in the state of Indiana. You can't run a school corporation at a deficit. And they had hired old Dr. Joe. And he was a fascinating guy, 75 years old, had retired 5 times already. He was the superintendent, but he was also some kind of a financial genius. He had an open assistant position, and I said, He
What
offered me the
district
position.
was that, Dr. Schaefer?
His name was Dr. Joe somebody. I don't know what his last name was. This is
At which what
what
school district?
East Chicago.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And he, because of the money, he told them they could only pay him $120,000 a year, and he donated half of that back. So he was being superintendent of one of the most challenging districts in the state of Indiana for $60,000 a year. And so I'm overthinking things. And I said, all right, if I get hired as assistant superintendent for him, and he told me the board wants you to stay on after I retire and become superintendent. And I'm thinking, there's no way in the world I can do that job for 60,000 a year. But that's what they're going to expect. And I turned it down. Dumb. That would have been a good open door. But you live and learn. So that's kind of the thought. Now, Lindsay, you've asked a couple of questions in the chat here. So let's go to one of your first questions there. And
I was just wondering if you could just share the negotiation process when you're offered a soup job and what that looks like.
oh yeah,
So I
that's going
think
to be
it's a
you.
lot different if it's your first, or if you have some experience that you're leaning into or leveraging a little bit. The three interims that I just covered, one that I think Mike, did you help us fill which one, the Fairfield one? I think
Yes.
you've been on when Dr. Cannon was hired. Typically, you know what a school district is willing to pay, and a school district typically has, and they're creatures of habit. They have a comfort level, and they will try, and typically fairly successfully when it's a first time superintendency, to have a package that is very similar to the outgoing person. Potentially, if you're brand new, you don't have any experience coming in, the salary is going to be a little low. So I would say that for the most part, if it's a mid-size or a smaller school district, at least from my experience, there's not a tremendous amount of negotiation other than what the salary might be, because
Yeah.
the package tends to be the kind of the package for these folks.
There used to be a lot more flexibility, I think. Um, when I first started following school districts and paying attention to this kind of stuff, you always had this feeling that the salary was not where they got most of their money. There were annuities and there were extra things, kind of stashed along the way, but those have all kind of been centralized now. I mean, you don't see too much of that.
Yeah, so that definitely changed with the change in the law, where now the superintendent's contract has to be published in the paper prior to the school board, and the school board has to hold a public hearing on the details of that contract, the financial details of that contract, prior to even being able to agree to that contract. It's a financial responsibility, because many school districts, similar to what Mike's saying, or at least the one school district, when there was a severance buyout that was shocking in terms of the amount to the conscience of some of our state legislators, the school board says, well, we didn't even know that was severance was part of his contract. And from that point on, we have had to publish, as one of the processes we go through as the university search team, is help the board understand their legal responsibility to, once they negotiate that contract, they have to put it in the paper. And so there are definitely attorneys assist school boards in preparing those publications to put those financial details into the newspaper now, whereas obvious before that was not the case. And I think there was a lot more creativity in hidden money, so to speak. Now there's a bottom line number that typically shows up. The one thing I would say relative to negotiating that contract, though, is that has actually, I think, in my opinion, resulted in a few more choices for superintendents, where school boards understand, okay, the salary is going to be a certain component of that financial package, and all these fringes are also now components. And so it's one of the recommendations we make to boards is that they be ready for you as you come in as a superintendent to say, okay, here's the cafeteria of options, and here's the total package amount that we're willing to pay. And so if you want health insurance, you take health insurance. If you don't want it, you don't take it. And those things then get figured in. So you come up with a total package number. So, and I think in some ways that's added some flexibility to the process in terms of negotiating that first contract.
Do they
Obviously,
assume?
One of the interesting things is that buyout thing almost became, it appeared to be kind of like a game. You get a good contract, but you make sure that you put a golden parachute on the end of it there so that if you got, you always do an evergreen contract, so it's renewed every year. So you always have 3 years ahead of you. And then some superintendents walked away with upwards of $600,000 severance. That's still a pretty good amount of money. Um, so one of the things to keep in mind in Indiana, every salary has to be published on the school website. So here's what you're going to learn pretty quickly. There's not a big flashing light on there that says, click here for superintendent salary. Most of the time, it's a little difficult to find. It might be buried in amongst all the other administrators in the district or with every employee of the district. I'm going to suggest to you the easiest way to do it. Google or AI, whichever you prefer, say, give me the superintendent's salary for and name the district, and it'll take you right to it. It's a whole lot easier that way than trying to dig through the district website because that will take a very long time. And if you see what they're making right now, that's a pretty good indicator of what you can, probably, as Randy said, maybe a little less than that, and it depends on how much experience they had and that kind of thing. Tyrone, you've got your hand raised.
Yeah, great. Just want to shout Lindsay out. That was a great question. That was actually one of my questions that I wanted to ask. Also, wanted to talk about the evaluation process for a superintendent. How should that look in the contract as far as the verbiage? And what is the expectation for a first year superintendent? Is there more evaluations or more progress monitoring because of the new being the new superintendent? And as you go throughout your contract, does that evaluation process or cadence start to change based on the results that you're putting in, or is that evaluation um, amendment going to be constant throughout the entirety of the contract?
That's a great question.
it's a great question, but I will be point blank honest with you. In every superintendency that I have filled, which are the smaller mid-sized districts up here, um, mostly right here in um, Noble, Elkhart County, LaGrange County. The quality of the superintendent evaluation depended almost entirely upon the superintendent.
Yes.
School boards are elected, oftentimes a requirement to have any management experience or skill set in terms of evaluating a highly compensated CEO is not a requirement to get elected. And so many school districts are just there ready for you as a superintendent to utilize the leadership skills that you have to help and teach them as to what a good and meaningful evaluation for your position would be and what it would look like. That's
Absolutely.
certainly is not the case at some other school districts. I do know that there are some school districts where they get a school attorney or perhaps even a consulting firm in, and they will actually take control of that evaluation system. One of the things that's, obviously very important is establishing, well, what are the benchmarks, or if you would use the term a scorecard, what's the scorecard that they're going to use? What are the metrics they're looking for? I mean, is it financial efficiencies they're looking for? Is it improvement in terms of learning goals? Is it a cultural improvement? And so you're going to find that it's going to be different at every school. And but this is one of the things when I mentor, and as I'm mentoring superintendents up in this area, any superintendent who says, well, they don't evaluate me effectively, they say, well, you're the leader. I'm sorry, these are just elected people. I mean, some of them jump off the tractor and come into the school board meeting. They barely have time to get change, or they are not management professionals. So
absolutely,
it's a
and I
wonderful
think that's one
question,
of
but
those things that one of the best things that you can do with that is remember that the superintendent, and we'll talk a lot about this in the second half of the class, as we're talking about responsibilities of the board and how that meshes with responsibilities of the superintendent. But the superintendent is the only person that crosses that line of between management and governance. So they have the responsibility to instruct the school board as well as to work for the school board. And that's kind of a unique position. It's unusual about this position, but that's what really comes into play when you're talking about evaluations as well. Tony.
Thanks, Dr. Schaefer. So my question, and my question set in general, is more about the process of landing the superintendent job, rather than what the day-to-day activities might be, or anything of that nature. And so I've wondered, just because I've had conversations with some of our central office employees who don't have building level experience, and then some of them who do, and vice versa. And this was a big topic we talked about with my director of secondary curriculum just a week ago. I said, my question is, what leadership qualities have you found are the hardest to assess when determining who's going to be hired for that superintendent job, and kind of which qualities do you think stand out amongst the crowd of people, on between like what otherwise would be a strong applicant for the job, or a subpar applicant?
Okay, Randy, that's all you, man.
So I think, again, that's a really good question. One of the things you have to understand, or I want you to understand, is that when you are deciding where you want to apply, is that you don't apply everywhere. Like Dr. Shaver was saying earlier, you want to be cognizant of what is the fit when I go there. And then I think another thing that you want to be aware of is, what's the circumstance of the opening. So if you're looking at a school district whose superintendent was perhaps pressured out, or there were some issues, you can look at, well, what were the skill set of that individual, because there will be what I call a swing. So if somebody is very, very detail oriented, and they've been a pusher and a driver, people are going to want somebody we need somebody who's a relationship person. We need somebody who's going to relate well to us. And as the university search team, one of the things that we actually spend time doing is we actually do a survey. One of the things we offer is a community survey. What I have always done when I'm a interim is I meet with buildings, and we do a group process, a forced consensus process, to say, okay, what are the professional skills you're looking for here? What are the personality traits that you hope for in your new leader? And then what are the actual experiences that you want them to have? And that's where you get into the whole idea of, well, do they need to have central office experience? Do you want somebody who at least has building experiences, but you're willing to have somebody move straight from a principal's job into the superintendency? Or do you want somebody who has at least 4 or 5 years as a successful years as a superintendent? All of those things get developed, and that's one of the roles that we play in the university search team that I can do for you guys. If you're looking at a particular opening, whether the university search team is doing it or not, I could possibly find out, okay, what are they looking for? Or if, let's say, the ISBA is doing the search because the School Board Association offers search services, um, you would be able to get a hold of them and find out, well, what is this school looking for before you actually apply? So there's a variety of different needs, and typically it's a need that's different from the person that was just there. Oftentimes they're looking for somebody that's maybe going to take them back to the middle from where that person's superpowers were, so to speak.
Thank you.
That's been my experience.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
and I think one of the things that's always good, and I'll just throw this in there, if you are selected as a candidate, and a lot of times now the first interview may be by Zoom. I don't like that. I think it's always better if they're in person. But if you get that opportunity, one of the things that you absolutely really need to do is spend some time in that school district. Drive around the school district, look at the schools, see what kind of condition they're in. Look at all the information that's available to you on the internet right now about that school system. You can read, but one of the best things you can do is go to the public library in that district and read the local paper. Read what it says about their sports teams and what kind of support they have. What's most important to them? If you're going to Carmel, you want to know that one of the biggest things is swimming, because that's a big deal. If you don't happen to like swimming, you're probably not going to get hired at Carmel. It's one of those things. So know the district before you go there, because what you do not want to do is enter into the process of being interviewed, going up and maybe even being a finalist, and then say, you know what, I don't really like this place. I would never want to live here. And so, yeah, think I'm going to pull out. That really is a bad thing when that happens. So one of the things I have always told people, don't apply if you don't want the job, period. No guarantee you'll get the job, but don't apply if you don't want it.
Hey, I would say you're probably going to get a good feel for the culture and flavor if you do. A lot of school districts are pretty active on socials.
Yeah.
A lot of them, not as much in, certainly most of them will have Facebook. Some of them will have some pretty extensive Instagram profiles and things like that. So sometimes there's less in the paper than what you're going to be able to find online. So I would say you do it, but doing your research on the school district is definitely a good idea. Into to get to the thrust of that question is that you find out, okay, do I even want to go to a place that's celebrating this types, celebrating these types of things as opposed to things that maybe are more in line with what you want to do as a leader in a school district.
Thank you.
All right, Jenny, you had a follow up to Tony's question.
Yeah, kind of along the same line. It was not one of my questions I submitted, Dr. Schaefer. So I
That's
hope
okay. Not a problem.
Do you think, just hearing everybody introduce themselves and several people with a multitude of different experiences, do you think school boards typically not having a lot of education background, I would say too, do you think they look more favorably upon candidates who like consistency in one area, have been in elementary and know elementary really well? Or do you think it does them favors to have served in leadership at multiple different areas and places? I ask that just because one of my mentors I've been talking to, so I've been in elementary for 20 years, and they thought it wouldn't hurt me to get some secondary experience. But I also wonder if there's something to being consistent and knowing one thing really, really, really well.
It used to be said that the path to the superintendency goes through the high school principal's office. And that's the only people that would be, even when I first came to Indiana, I kind of felt like that's how it was, that most of the superintendents had been high school principals. Also, a lot of them at that point in time had been coaches. Well, I wasn't either one. I couldn't coach anything if my life depended on it. So that depends on the school district because sometimes it's entirely your school board. What are they looking for? Are they looking for somebody that just treats people nice? It happens. If they've had a superintendent that's, a real piece of work, they may be looking for somebody who cares about people and mentors people.
Yeah, I think there's some definite red flags that I have seen boards react to as it relates to past experience. And again, it kind of goes back to what I started with is that, the best way to get a job is to do an absolute bang up job where you're at and with what you're doing. Um, School boards don't like to do these searches. They like to go to their meetings twice a month. This is a lot of work, a
It is a
lot of
lot of
work.
work. Yeah.
And so when they sit down, most school boards are trying to find somebody. Now, this does not necessarily apply to urban settings or extremely large districts, because I think there you're much more in a political position. And so people, I think, are making plays politically with their superintendent hire. But a small district who's really focused in on their kids aren't demo, are they typically are looking for some sense of great fit and longevity. And
Yeah.
so I think, Victor, as you were going through your litany of things, that can really be unnerving, I think, for a school board as they're looking for their future leader to say, well, where did this person ever stay for longer than 5 years? And so if you can show a sense of consistency to a particular school, to a particular district, or maybe even to a specific job, and you've shown over a long period of time, and you've shown that consistency, that plays well with a lot of school boards because they now can see you. Okay, you've been consistent, and you've had the stickiness at the job. That's what we're looking for. We want somebody who's going to be sticky. We want somebody who's going to be here through the tough times. And so there's a balance in how you present yourself. But then, of course, all the high school teachers want somebody who has high school experience, and all the kindergarten teachers want somebody who understands primary education, and middle school teachers, they want somebody who's maybe walked that jungle with them. And then, so again, there's no definite answer, but all I would say is there would be no harm in getting a little bit of secondary experience, but I wouldn't pop around trying to collect experience so that you can get that next job.
Yeah.
They want somebody who's got some stickiness, and they want somebody that's going to come in and be a leader in their community for a long time. That's how great school districts grow and become. Typically, there's consistency in leadership, and so that would be one thing is don't
jump just for the experience. Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it just for the experience. I would want to
definitely
talk about your dedication to who you are and why you stayed true, and why now you're ready for something else, and you're going to bring that same stickiness to the next job.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, Victor, you've had your hand up for a long time, so we're going to let you.
No, I appreciate that. There's two questions I have are related to, can you just speak to the importance of the board composition as far as how many school board members are on that school board? And then what are some of the supports for a new superintendent as far as you were talking about earlier, building that capacity of your board, advice on how to build that capacity as far as that governance, especially if you're rolling on new school board members, to make sure there's alignment, messaging, all those types of things. And then also kind of speaking to what have you seen in your travels as far as supports for superintendents who end up taking on some type of executive coach within their time as a superintendent, regardless of the years of experience.
You want to start, Mike, on that?
Sure. School boards are about as different as every community is different. And so for me to say to you, and trust me, we will talk a lot about school boards because there is one requirement in order to be a school board member in the state of Indiana. I'm not going to ask you for show of hands if you could guess this. You have to have attended school at some point in time. If you stopped at kindergarten, that's good enough. As long as you went to school, that's all it takes to know how to run a school. So that you're going to have those kind of school board members, then you're going to have the opposite end who have lots of experience and all that kind of stuff. So it doesn't really matter how many people, whether you have 5, 7, or 9 on a school board. Nine's a lot, unless you're a really big school district. But understand now, the one thing I'm glad we did not yet vote in the state of Indiana is that you have to tell what your political party is in order to announce your run for school board. I think anything we can do to not politicize public education, we need to hold on to that. But understand that your school board members are going to come from everywhere, and some of them will come in with the biggest chip on their shoulder. They're going to run with a chip on their shoulder. The idea being, I am going to run because I want to get Kent tossed out of office as the superintendent. And that's going to be their whole, everything they talk about. I've seen that happen in Fort Wayne Community Schools when I worked there. And within 2 months after this person got elected, and that's what she had run on the ticket for getting Wendy Robinson removed. I don't know how many of you knew Wendy Robinson. Wendy was a force of nature. And that's the best way I know that she's best superintendent I ever worked for. And I am not ashamed to say that. But they also had, for the years that I was there, a board president who announced when he was running for school board, as soon as he got elected, he said, I want to be the president, and I plan to be president the whole time I serve on the board. And he was. And he was good. He was the one, he and the superintendent behind closed doors would fight like cats and dogs. But when they walked out of that boardroom into the public boardroom, they were unified because they dealt with whatever the issues were in private. And that's the kind of relationship you want to be able to have. You don't want to be fighting with your board president in an open board meeting. That's never going to look good because remember, they have people that elected them. So whoever's on your board, however you choose the people who are going to be president and vice president and all that kind of stuff, and we'll talk a lot about that again, but understand that your board, one of the biggest things that you are going to do is cultivate them. You, as the superintendent, one of your primary jobs is to cultivate and mentor your school board members. Teaching your boss what to do is what you're doing.
That's a really good way to say that. Oftentimes, the interns, as they're out there, working on some of their projects and they're tiptoeing around current superintendents. One of the things I like to say is you can't do that when you're the superintendent. You don't drive your own agenda, but you can't be shy about leading your board and speaking up, because if you allow your board to start to dictate educational leadership issues, that's where you want to work with them, you want to train them, you want to convince them. But that is one of the biggest roles. Victor, you talked a little bit about, I think, about just your own personal development as a new superintendent in terms of getting guidance as to how to create good relationships and effective board governance. And then also, I heard you ask the question just about your own executive coach or seeking out some personal supports like that. I would say, as a general rule, with smaller school districts that I've been a part of, there really isn't a lot of paid executive coaching that I have really seen people take advantage of. The place where I have seen that, and I think it's been very effective, I certainly participated when I was a superintendent, is the Superintendent Association, certainly here in Indiana. And I think as Jeff Butts is taking over there, I think he definitely has a vision to continue that, where we have
Yes.
executive coaching. There was a Hallmark program that was a part of the opportunity that, there was a slight charge to my board. I did have my board approve my participation in that, but we actually had some pretty extensive and very good executive coaching that went through our Superintendent Association. As far as governance, the ISBA, the School Board Association, offers some great training there as well. I think those would be some places where you get that. Out where you're at, especially in an extremely large, more of an urban setting, Victor, it would not. And I have had some of my acquaintances who were at some of the larger suburban school districts that have actually been encouraged by their boards, who are maybe their business folks, things like that, that have some great connections in terms of executive and private executive coaching, that have invested in their superintendents and encourage them to actually have a higher priced, more specific, individualized executive coach relationship. So I wouldn't say that's completely out of the realm, but I think for most smaller school districts in Indiana, I haven't seen that a lot. Most school districts rely on the associations to provide that.
Yeah, and I will say, for those of you who have interest, and a number of you are tied into either the donut districts around Indy or in IPS, those are the districts in Indiana that tend to be the ones who go after executive coaching, and it's not a bad idea. You want to be very careful about the person that you choose, because there are a lot of people who are willing to take your money and don't give you very much for it. And one of my good friends is the former superintendent of South Bend, and uh, Todd Cummings. I worked with Dr. Todd Cummings when he worked at Fort Wayne Community, and he had a string of job titles that literally on his signature line went about that long. Um, in fact, principals, we all kind of laughed because we'd say, "Now, what job is Todd doing this month?" Because he had that many. He decided at that point, right soon after I left Fort Wayne Community, he decided to go to South Bend as an assistant superintendent. He got hired there, and that's when he really kicked it into high gear. Got his doctorate, started going after coaching, hired an executive coach, started meeting with these major search teams. And we're talking about the Hazard Young Atea, and some of these other big names of executive, for executive search firms. If that's the world that you want to live in and you're willing to be mobile, then you do need to take that step, because there are things that you need to understand. One, every conference you go to, and Todd would tell you this, you're going to visit with those people of the big search firms and make sure they know who you are. Anytime you have a change in your position, you're going to let them know. You're going to keep in constant contact with them. If you know anything about South Bend, you know that Todd was one of the, I think, may have been the longest lasting superintendent in South Bend. And the interesting thing about that, he was also the first openly gay superintendent in the state of Indiana. He said, I am who I am, and I'm not trying to hide anything. Now, some districts that would not work, but Todd he was everywhere. And if you talk about social media, he was on every form of social media, and he was always surrounded by kids and teachers everywhere he went. When he knew that it was going to happen, that he was going to lose his job, because it happens sometimes when you get a change of board and new board members get elected, he knew long before it was announced that he was going to be gone. It had nothing to do with not calling a 2 hour delay. That's what it said in the paper. It had nothing to do with that. It was a change in the board. He already knew where he was looking at. And he almost immediately got a call from Paradise Valley in Arizona, and they wanted to interview him, and he was the candidate. Again, it depends on the kind of district that you're talking about. If you're looking, and there are not very many big districts in the state of Indiana, so you want to think through, what do you want to do? What's the long-term picture? How do you get there from here? So, and he did employ a professional coach, and still employs a professional coach, somebody that will tell him when he's full of crap. And they did on many occasions. All right. And I think next is Carla.
All right. Hi. You kind of already or answered the one about red flags for um the red flags for the school board, but I wanted to ask, when in the process for searching for a superintendent job, are there any immediate red flags for us that we need to be aware of and keep in mind when we're trying to see what is the best fit for us?
All right. So I'm going to answer that one because that's one of my absolute favorite questions. And I didn't listen to the red flag. I was interviewed for a school district just south of Marion, a little bit northwest of Muncie, and that's as far as I will go as describing the district. But I had been in a very diverse district, and when I interviewed for this one, I had heard that it was the home of the Klan in Indiana. That city was. And I thought, nah, not in these days. And I interviewed, and they didn't call me back. And then 4 months later, they called me and said, we want to talk to you about an assistant superintendent's job. And I said, okay. I had no idea. Within 2 weeks of arriving there, I was approached by, I was in charge of transportation. One of the wonderful things, this was one of those jobs where it was like everything the superintendent doesn't want to do, that's what you do. Well, one of the bus drivers turned to me, and this was when President Obama was running for office. And right in the hallway in the central office, a bus driver looked at me and said, well, what do you think about that? And he used the N word, running for president. And I said, I looked like that, deer in the headlights. And then I said, Jerry, if you worked for the school district that I just quit working for, you would be fired for that for that comment right there. And he said, this is, and he named the school district, and his exact words were, this is blank, boy. You better get used to it. 2 weeks into my job there, you know what I did that day? I started looking for another job. Know those kinds of things. Pay attention to the flags. Okay.
I think there's a couple of things. I know why the person is leaving. I think if when you get a sense of the culture, this is where now school board meetings, there's no reason not to know. In Indiana, every school board meeting is up. You want to go back and find out, well, why did Central Noble's superintendent change over? We just had a changeover at Central Noble. If you want to find out, well, what happened at Westview? Why did Zimmerly get hired as an interim there. All you got to do is it's a real easy search. You can find out what's going on places.
Yeah.
So, and then your red flags will be your red flags. When you look at that. I mean, some people look at troubled school districts that are struggling a little bit and see that as the challenge, and that's what their life's work is. I mean, I'm kind of in that boat a little bit. I've covered interims now, and I wouldn't necessarily recommend this as a first superintendency, but it's one of the things that I've discovered that I do pretty well is come in, settle the waters, get some systems in place, make sure we get our focus back on kids, help a school board find a new superintendent. And so part of that is deciding who you want to be as a superintendent. Dr. Cannon at Fairfield, I think when she came in, she was coming, she had an awareness of what that school district was, and she went after it. I think Dr. Carroll at Westview is somewhat the same way. You chase those districts that you know and that you really want to be at.
Yeah, and a good thing, part of the superintendent search process, if they use the university search team, is to sit down with the school board and say, what are the most important things you're looking for? And so the university search team does a pretty good job of saying, all right, we have 15 people who have applied for this position. We're going to give you the top 6 that meet the things you are looking for, because that's why you want to have a good search team that's helping you, because it really does make a difference. If you are looking for somebody who has small town values, then that's the kind of person you want to be talking to. And just a word about resumes. Let me just throw this out there. Remember your resume. For most of you have not done any college teaching, college CVs, we even call them by a different name, are very different from resumes that you use in a working position like a superintendent. If you're a superintendent and you're putting out your resume, get somebody to look at it before you send it in. You don't want to list every single thing you've ever done for every single place, so that, your list of things that you've done in the one school where you were principal is 2 pages long. That gets like really, really old. But you also don't want just a 3-page resume. So you want to have a balance. Get somebody to look at it and help you with that process. So I think that's really important.
I think the other red flag that I would look at, Carla, is where are they at with referenda? Have they gone for a referendum? Was there or was there not support for such a thing? I would definitely pay attention to that, or what is the appetite? And again, this is one of those things you can get, like, most school districts they're supposed to have their board minutes written and posted somewhere on their website. So if you're really kind of questioning if it's a place you want to go, I would definitely look at, well, what is their financial standing? Are they a distressed district when it comes to finances? And again, those are things that maybe you haven't gotten there yet. I don't know if you've all spent a lot of time in finance, but I think that's one of the things I'd look at is say, okay, who's on the DUAT? What is the distressed units?
Oh yeah, talk about that a little bit, Randy.
So there was a big push, especially as Gary got into financial trouble in Muncie and some other school districts that were in danger of defaulting. There was a big push to identify which units are in distress. And so they put together a distress units board and DUAB, and what they're looking for is they're looking for districts that seem to be in tough financial shape. So those are things that I would look at in terms of red flags. Attempted and failed referenda, inability to keep a superintendent. There's certainly some school districts that the university search team, we want to help everybody, but we're almost to the point with a couple of districts where, we're not going to help anymore. We give you great people, and then you do things that are not in the best interest. So it's because I think that's something to be aware of. So those are red flags that I would look at in a district. But don't go anywhere if you don't know them. I mean, do your homework.
Absolutely do your homework.
Do your homework.
And I will tell you this, one of the advantages that you have between Dr. Cadell, that most of you have right now, and myself, both of us spent a long number of years doing supervising internships. And so out of the 293 school districts across the state of Indiana, between the two of us, we know somebody in just about all of them. And so we can tell you things that you're probably not going to find in the paper. Don't be afraid to ask. That's why so many of my former students call me and say, "Hey, I'm applying for this job. What do I need to know?" If I don't know, I'm going to send them to Dr. Cadell because he knows them. So do that because that's going to be a big help to you. All right, and I am going to move right now to Shade because she's been waiting patiently for a long time.
Thank you. So my charter brain is back on, and I'm wondering when looking at jobs to be a superintendent, does that type of experience matter? Because even in like reading the readings for our finance class, the tension between public and charter and school choice and all of that is very big. And so if it is someone who, similar to myself, I mean, I'm in public now, but the majority of my career is charter, is that something that search committees look at to either be like, this is not somebody we're
I am so
interested
glad
in?
you asked that question. And I'll tell you what, my first 17 years were spent in private schools. When I made the jump to public education, it was because there was one board member in an urban school district who knew me personally and said, "I want this guy to be a principal in this district." That was my open door. Now, so let's lay the whole big thing on the table. All right. State of Indiana, we have every form of choice that exists anywhere in the country, whether it's the scholarships or the vouchers or the savings accounts and there are going to be more of them. I don't really care. Now, personally, professionally, politically, yeah, I have some serious issues with some of those things, and I would be happy to address that to anybody who wants to know personally. You know what they're looking for more than anything else? They are looking for who you are. Now, if you go into a public school board interview session and every example you give is from being in private school, they're probably not going to be as interested in you because they want to know, do you have any experience dealing with the union? Well, if you've been in a charter, you may not have had experience dealing with the union either. So be prepared for those kinds of questions. But more than anything else, they want to know, who are you? And that is a huge thing. Who are you?
Yeah, I would
What do you
definitely
believe in?
concur. I think you have to show your competence in the public arena if that's what you
Right.
want. If you want to be a leader of a public school, you have to show your competence there. And that'd be understanding unions, understanding the multitude of requirements that public schools have that right now charters are enjoying freedom from. I would say one of the things you may want to do is the concept of an accusation audit. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but the whole idea of an accusation audit is hit it right on the head. Is if you think it's going to be an issue for them, you bring it up. That, you bring it up and you frame your diversity in terms of your experiences in charter and in public, that you understand public even better than public school people because you haven't been in the water as it was warming up, so to speak. You've come into it, now you've got your eyes more wide open. So I think it could be an advantage. But yeah, if I was a school board member, I'd want to make sure you understand public finance, and I'd want to make sure you understand union relationships and those types of things. Do you have experience with negotiations, or are you somebody that you don't have any experience with negotiations? So those would be the things I would think of.
Okay, and we're going to move to Sharonda. If this is not a good time, we can come back. Okay, hearing nothing, we will go to Eric.
I guess a lot of my questions have been answered to this great discussion, but I'm just wondering a little bit about interviews. So how is a superintendent interview different, or what are some different things that you might experience in an interview for that position that's different than a building principal or some of the other positions leading up to that?
I would say one of the main differences is that it's going to be multi-step, and
Yeah.
my experience has been that the first step, typically, at least this is the way the search team frames and suggests and trains school boards, because that's what we do. We meet with them to talk specifically about structuring of the interview. And so one of the things we do is we help them understand that that first interview, when you're looking at 6 or 7 people, after they have the people that they want to interview, that they try to make that an apples to apples comparison in terms of what the questions are, who asked the questions, same person, same type of format. And then after they go through that process, typically at that time, there might be a second interview. And that second interview would be unique to each candidate. So, what were the things that came up in the first interview that intrigued or piqued the interest of individual board members, or maybe they were items of concern? So then there would typically be a second interview with the hopes of that second interview where they would be bringing back maybe 4 of the 7 that they interviewed, bring back 4. But then that second interview could be fairly unique. Maybe even asking for what's your 90-day plan if you would come here. There could be a multitude of different opportunities. Sometimes the second interview might include bringing a couple of key administrators, or perhaps the administrative team if it's small enough. If it's a district to have 4 or 5 principals, maybe they'll bring all the principals in and put together a social situation and just see how do you react, and be able to let you interact with them and then talk to them after that second interview. Well, what did you think? How did those things go? Sometimes they'll bring in an educational expert who they were trying to figure out whether they thought it was a good personality fit in that first interview, but then, okay, the second interview, they might bring in their curriculum person to ask you a couple of questions in their presence about some of the things that are going on at the school district. So I just think there's a lot more flexibility and creativity in what that second interview might look like, and potentially a third interview. I think the other thing that I would say is quite different is what Dr. Schaefer alluded to back closer to the beginning of the discussion, which is you can expect some confidentiality through maybe your first interview. But if you get invited back to a second interview, it's Katie bar the door. It's very possible that they will come to your community and then point blank start asking people, what do you think of this? What do you think of your school superintendent? What do you know about them? And there actually might be a site visit, or maybe they might even ask you to set up a visit. Let's say you're a high school principal, get permission of your superintendent to say, hey, we'd like to come in and interview some of your teachers. So this is a big deal for school boards. They want to do a really good job, and so that expectation of confidentiality goes out the door when you get probably to that second interview. And I don't know, Dr. Schaefer, you did it for longer than I have, so.
Well, one of the things to keep in mind, folks, is that especially in most of the school districts in the state of Indiana, when you get hired, you will instantly be the highest paid individual in that school district, in that area, unless it's a big industrial area. So there are going to be expectations. Depending on where you go, different states are very different. I interviewed in Tennessee. and all of the interviews were public. Whoever wanted to attend could attend. And they even had open season. They could ask you anything. And they put me on a school bus with the other top two candidates and took us all three around the school district at the same time, riding the same school bus. And that was wild. It was an interesting experience. Um, I did not get the job. They said, we want to hire the old veteran who knows what he's doing. And that's who they had. They hired the old guy. Yeah, it was their loss. But, you know, these interviews can be the Wild West, but if the search team that's working with them is good, they're going to regulate a lot of what goes on. And you may have noticed that in the link for tonight's thing, there was a list of questions that they are not allowed to ask. Know what those are. Understand, however, somebody's still going to pop one of those questions at you at some point in time. It could be during a social hour. They could say, so you're not married. Are you planning on getting married anytime soon? All right, they're not allowed to ask that, but they're going to ask it if they want to. They cannot tell you that you have to live in that school district, but they're going to ask you, do you plan to move here? There are a lot of those kinds of things. Prepare yourself for the answers. And now, Sharonda, we're going to move to your question.
Okay, sorry, I am still at work, so I apologize. Multitasking.
No problem.
So I do have one of my questions were already answered, but am going to ask this other one about the going back to the application process. How do
Okay.
you ensure that you're authentically communicating like your leadership philosophy, track record readiness to ensure to serve while navigating like the technical and political aspects of the superintendent
Oh,
application
that's
process?
terrific. That is a great question. For one thing, you need to know what your philosophy is. Don't you dare, after being in this program, say to a, a hiring board, I've never really given any thought to that. I don't know what my philosophy is, because I will personally find you. That's a promise. Know what you believe and why you believe it, and also know how you think about various things. You don't have to be 100% match on all of your philosophies about education, but read the room. You've got to be able to read the room. If there's something that comes up as really important to them and it comes clear this is something that's really important to them, like for example, I'll give you an example of way southern Indiana, Vigo County a couple of years ago, who got in a lot of trouble. And one day, a whole bunch of big black cars drove into the parking lot and took away all the computers and the files. And several of the administrators who ended up spending some time in jail as the FBI hauled them off. The next person they wanted to hire, they wanted somebody who was absolutely flawless in never breaking the law. You know, so know the story and then be able to translate that to philosophy, because everything you do is based on a philosophy. Everything. And sometimes we don't like to think about, just tell me what I need to know. Well, sometimes you can't. All right, now let's move. We're going to try to
just real quick.
Yeah, go ahead, Randy.
Dr. Schaefer. I think when you're looking at, don't think that they're going to get an understanding of what your philosophy is from the written answers that you necessarily give to the questions. My experience has been that I think for the most part, there are some people who spend a lot of time with that, but as I've been involved, there's probably a whole lot more. And they want to look, they want to make sure you wrote something. But in terms of really understanding who you are from the written application you turn in, I think it's going to depend a whole lot more when you get with them face to face.
Yeah.
If that was kind of where your question was coming from as it related to the application.
When you walk into the room, shake hands with all the board members. That's simple. And smile. I know you're going to be scared to death in your first interview. Smile. Do not be afraid to let them see you. And if you're like me and you have a hard time smiling, I am not a natural smiler. You've picked up on that already. That does not mean I'm upset. It just means I can't smile for pictures. I can't ever do that. But when I'm talking to people, it comes very naturally. Know what you need to do. Know what you need to work on and how you present yourself. If they have a social event, talk to everybody you can talk to and make sure that you are talking to as many different kinds of people as possible. Don't just talk to the football coach. So that's how you have to think this through. Teresa, and we're going to have to hurry because we have I still want to get, by show of hands, who has not gotten to ask a single question yet? I know Teresa has not, right?
Mhm.
And Brent and Rachel. And I think that's it. So we'll try to keep these quick so we can give you all a chance. All right.
So just kind of going back to the thoughts around the board and how boards are appointed or elected, what are your thoughts about the current House Bill 1423 that has a potential impact on marginalized students and communities, specifically the district I work for?
Okay. This is a huge question.
It
And
is.
we will be talking about this more in the class. But here's the thing that most politicians don't understand when they write these bills. They do not understand marginalized populations or underserved populations. So, for an interview kind of thing, you really don't want to talk about any of that stuff. Stay away from politics. Now, when you become a superintendent, do you want to advocate for your school district? Absolutely. But you also want to make sure that if you make a promise to your school board, you're going to follow through on that promise. I know a superintendent in a decent sized district, 9,000 or so, that was asked to take a position at the state, to serve on a committee at the state. And the board said, we'll let you serve on this committee as long as you vote. And they told this superintendent how they wanted that superintendent to vote. And he agreed. There, I said it. I didn't mean to say he. This person agreed and then went right down there and voted the opposite way that the school board had told him to vote. And they fired him as
So,
soon as
part
possible.
two to that, how do you leverage those relationships? Because a lot of the times, the people that
The
are
last
in,
word is the one that you talked about, relationships. It
okay,
is all about relationships.
okay.
And
I think
I promise you, we will come back to that more.
I
Okay,
think
Brent,
just real
go
quick
ahead,
on
Eddie.
appointed school boards. So when I started, Goshen's board was still appointed. This is when I was just getting started in education. This was the mid '80s. Middlebury, Northridge, their school board was still appointed, and there was actually a lot of fear within those of us who were working there that when we went to an elected, and I think this would actually be my experience, is that the appointed boards that I worked with were at that time were much better than we didn't have the rogue board member who was able to get elected. That some communities got elected, but the big thing that I'm curious about is, well, who's appointing? So if I look at IPS and you say, okay, if it's is it the leaders within the community that are appointing, or is it the governor? Who actually gets to appoint? Is it a political caucus, or is it? So I do think I am not afraid of appointed school boards based on my experience that I had at one time. But who's doing the appointing is the key. So
That's
yeah,
it.
I'm anxious to see how it goes. And
Yeah, and I will tell you, I know Eric, you work in Muncie. One of the best school board presidents I've ever known, and I don't know if he's still your school board president, the guy that used to be a judge. He still is. Oh my word. The guy totally understood underserved populations Uh, and he did, you guys need to look this up on YouTube. Muncie School Board President explains critical race theory.
He did a great job that
It
night.
was a classic. It really was. All right. So, Brent, we come to you and we're on limited time.
My question is, how often do you feel like a school kind of weighs their community values and their culture over what we would consider like a traditional credential we would put on a resume? Is it more about the fit, or do you feel like it's more about the experience that we have that we can put on that resume?
It's the fit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're
Go
going to
ahead, Ron.
cast a vision for your relationship with them over a long period of time when they meet with you. So they're going to look and they're going to say, okay, do I want to come to the meeting if this guy's there or if this individual is the leader? And so they're casting a vision of the future, showing yourself able to, maybe in that second interview, showing yourself able to lead them as a group, help them all feel comfortable and relaxed. That's what leadership is all about. If it's just so, I agree 100% with Dr. Schaefer. I think it's a fit thing. Uh, Now, to get to that point, though, you're going to have click off a couple of boxes. I mean,
Yes, exactly. So that it's kind of a foundational thing. There are some things that you have to, in most cases, it's very rare to have the guy that they had in Seattle 20 years ago that was an old military guy, never had any school experience, and they hired him to be superintendent, and he was amazing for a while. And then he wasn't. And so there really is a foundation. Rachel, we're up to you.
Thanks, Dr. Schaefer. Thanks, Dr. Zimmerly. This has been so great. So thank you for all the great questions and input. So I was looking at the thing you posted in under the Zoom, the question, do you have the fortitude? And I was just hoping you could speak more on that piece of it. The mental resiliency, the grit, wow. I'm shaking in my
Yes.
boots right now thinking about being a
Yes.
superintendent, although I'm young, but if you could
It
speak more about
comes
that.
with time.
Okay.
Very few people automatically have the grit to do the job. But one of the things that most people have to develop is a thicker skin, period. Because there are going to be things that are going to be said to you that you're just going to have to let it roll right off your back and you're going to pretend like they didn't say it. Because you can spend all of your time, you can be upset all the time, worried all the time. But so resiliency and stick-to-itiveness, you're going to have to build. But I know I keep saying we're going to talk about this more in this class. We're also going to talk about wellness and balance and how to find that. And it's tough in a superintendent's job. It is very tough.
yeah, I definitely concur with everything that he said. I mean, you don't start with all the skills necessary to do the job the first time that you get there. So, I liken it to the idea of, walking the Appalachian Trail as opposed to running a sprint. The first day you're on the trail, it might be great. And then you start to get stronger and you get stronger over time. And, you're not walking the last 5 miles up boulders, up a mountain in Maine when you first start that trail. But by the time you get there, you're hardened up and you're ready for that. And I think there's a lot of truth to that.
Yep. And Michelle, we come to you for the final question of the evening.
Mine's sort of been answered. We've talked a lot about longevity, our personal longevity when we're applying for it and the positions we've held, the school board's longevity and things along that line. But my question is maybe slightly different because knowing that stepping into this position for the first time, you're going to have to lean on individuals that you are surrounding yourself with. So as you're watching those board minutes and reading those board minutes, and doing that research, how important is the longevity of those directors in that corporation and that financial office in that corporation when you're stepping into that role to understand maybe systemic issues that you're going to be walking into and potentially have to fix, but you
Yes.
have no clue how to do that.
Okay. So a couple things to keep in mind with that. The first thing that you say to your cabinet on your first day there should never be, I am evaluating all of you to see if any of you get to keep your jobs because I want to bring in my own people. I worked for a guy that did that. I didn't make the cut. I made it as long as I had a contract, and then he said, "You're done," um, because I wasn't one of his people. So don't do that. There are some of the people that will be surrounding you that are exceptional, and you want to hold loosely to the people who work around you, because one of the things that you have the responsibility to do for this thing we call public education is to mentor other people. And that will mean that after you've done a good job mentoring, they're going to leave you and go somewhere else. And you're going to let them go and you're going to bring somebody else in and you're going to do it all over again. All right. So look for their strengths. If you look at all the people that are really, really good at something in the world, they're usually good at one or two things. They're not good at everything. I always think about George H.W. Bush. The man was a billionaire multi times over, had served in all kinds of positions in Congress, had been a fighter pilot in World War II, made millions in the oil business, and could not, for the life of him, comb his own hair. He always had this like weird bump on the back of his head. And I'm like, George, pay somebody. You
At least
know,
he had hair, Dr. Schaefer.
I know. What can I say? Randy,
Unlike you
you're
and
not.
me.
That's right. But, most of the people that are really, really successful are good at a couple things. So rather than pick apart the things they don't do well, learn to zone in on those things that they're good at and build those things so that they get better, because that's how they get great. Sometimes you're going to find yourself doing an evaluation and you're going to think, what in the world can I say to this person that's positive? Find it.
I think if I take the context of your question, are there red flags there in terms of what's going on at the central office, who the cabinet members are, whether there is a cabinet or not? I think that what Dr. Schaefer said, I definitely agree with. I don't think it's best to come in and necessarily lay down a rule. Although this is one of the things that might be a little bit different than being interviewed as a principal. Sometimes boards do have and will tell you, okay, this is you got to take care of this personnel issue right away. Okay, and that's part of that relationship that you want to build with your board, and trying to assure them that, hey, I understand that's what you want me to do. I'm a person of integrity though, and I need to get in here and I will do the research and I will do what I can to try to help that person. So you want to make sure that you have some understanding of that. But again, it's one of those things that sometimes when a superintendent is failing, it's failing because they didn't put the right people on the bus and in the right places.
Exactly right.
So you can't be blind to the fact that, hey, you might have to make some changes in that cabinet. Sometimes that's the demise of the superintendent, was that they didn't make the tough choices and the tough decisions.
Yeah.
So it's a great question, but it's one that you really owe it to yourself, as well as I think to those employees, and also grab that leadership back from the board. You don't come in and fire somebody just because they said, grab that leadership back and say, I understand there's concerns. I will work on this. It'll be one of my top priorities because you're hiring me and you want me to help with this. But I think that's a very perceptive question. And I do think that is one thing, that's eyes wide open when you get there. You might have to make some cuts. You might have to remove some people, but do it after and understand exactly what's going on.
Absolutely. Well, Dr. Zimmerly, let me just be the first to say thank you so much. We appreciate having your wisdom and your experience. And this has made, I think I told you in the email, this is not a class that's shy about speaking up. And they have been the most active in discussion of any class that I've had up to this date. And I am very proud of them. Guys, you did a terrific job. And if you have any further questions that you would like for follow-up, you can definitely follow up with, I will get you Dr. Zimmerly's email, or you can email me and ask me, and we'll do our best to answer them for you.
Yeah, we're definitely here for you, especially as you're moving into possible positions and things like that. I'd like to keep a really good feel for who's out there from Ball State, who's looking. I want to advocate for you in the position of on this search team. So don't be shy about reaching out, asking questions, insight on jobs. More than willing to try to help you understand the different districts and want to be a resource. So don't be afraid.
Okay. Thank you very much, class, and we will see you the next time around.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.